So my first dealing with real estate will be some bad land we bought in Abuja. I even convinced one or two people to buy as well.
Oh my God.
So we bought. Now I don't even know if it's bad or good, because till today I don't know whether that land exists or whether it doesn't exist. I'll give us some kind of allocation paper.
Oh my God.
Yes. Well, now it costs more than that to fly to Abuja. So you have to pick whether you want to go and in for 2 big ticket land or whether you want to leave it. So when we incorporated Ragnarok in 2019, yes, our first deal, which I'll call a proper real estate deal, is 40,000 square meters in Lakowe that we bought from Mixta Africa. At this time, I was sure that the land was real. I was sure about the title. I had been to their office, in Victoria Island. Everything kind of checked out. The issue then was where to get the money. Where to get the money. That time we needed to pay them maybe almost like $500 million.
Hello, beautiful family. Welcome again to another episode of the Real Deal Naija podcast. Remember, on this platform, we are unbundling Africa's largest real estate market. Today with me, I have in the studio an amazing man who has contributed significantly to the real estate industry. He has developed several properties and his integrity speaks for him. But before we go into the episode today, I want you to take a pause and share this video. Your engagement, your comments, your DMs has really been encouraging, but we cannot get enough of it. So please do well to share this session to somebody that you would like to learn. Again, I have with me in the studio, Barrister Adebiyi Alex-Adedipe.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Barrister Adebiyi Alex-Adedipe is the CEO and managing director of Ragnarok Property Developments Limited. As I said earlier, his integrity speaks well for him. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into how he builds his real estate empire block by block. And he's going to let you into all of the behind the scenes, his regrets, and the lessons he has learned. Barrister Adedipe, thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's a privilege to have you here with me. I want you to do like a reverse and, take me back to the beginning. What really was it like when you started investing in real estate? What inspired investing in real estate?
Okay, so I would say the inspiration is from mostly, I'd say, reading books at the time.
Interesting.
Long time ago, I used to read some books. I think it must be Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, focused mostly on real estate.
Real estate, yes.
So I kind of understood the American market even more than the Nigerian market. Well, I would guess that I did. I mean, I didn't practice it, so I wouldn't know. But that was the attraction. Other than that, I've done many other businesses, but I was looking for sustainability. I was looking for something that you could also grow, right? And, a lot of businesses you start, even if it works, if it doesn't work, you really can't grow it past a certain level.
Okay.
And with real estate, it seems like it can take as much. So I might maybe share a personal experience of what I mean by that. I used to do commodity export before. This would be like 12 or so years ago. I do commodity export. I had a client in Vietnam that used to buy goods from us. Her name is Yoon, and they had troubles with Nigerian companies, but somehow we're able to build trust with them. And she would message and say that she wants us to be their supplier here. How much do we need and all of that. So this was a Vietnamese company offering us money.
Wow, integrity.
And we couldn't really take it because we couldn't buy as much goods as they wanted here.
Oh.
So the problem was how to source the goods from the local, people here. And we're having issues with that. So I'd invested about that time, maybe like 7 or 8 years in that. And when you invest to the point where, when you invest time in a business where you now get to the point of trust, and then a big player now comes and offers you money and you cannot take it, then you know that there's something wrong with their market.
True that.
Right. Other people can do it successfully, but I just didn't have the tools to. So I promised myself that if I was doing anything else after that time, it had to be something that can take as much money and as much growth as can happen.
I see.
Right. So that's more of what skewed me towards real estate.
Real estate. Oh, amazing. I love it. All right. So, sir, tell us now about your first real estate venture. So, it's not just about what you bought. Tell us, like, I want to get the story behind it, your thinking process, what were the fear, and what really was that faith that inspired you to go for that project?
Okay, so I'll say two things, right? I have two first projects. So the very, very first project, I won't call it the first project, but I'll tell you what I mean. So my first dealing with real estate will be some bad land we bought in Abuja at the time. This was when I was maybe I was in law school, maybe I had not finished law school, maybe I had just finished law school.
That was
You know, someone offered some land, brought some paper, said it was 250,000. You know, yeah. So I even like convinced one or two people to buy as well.
Oh my God.
So we bought. Now I don't even know if it's bad or good because till today I don't know whether that land exists or whether it doesn't exist. Shall give us some kind of allocation paper.
Oh my God.
Yes. You know, but I've been trying to follow up on it I was trying to follow up years later and nothing was coming out.
Until date?
Well, now it costs more than that to fly to Abuja. So you have to pick whether you want to go and in for two-big ticket lag or whether you want to leave it. So that's like the story of that. So I won't really call it real estate, my first real estate venture. But let's say the very first venture I would describe would be when we incorporated Ragnarok in 2019. Yes, our first deal, which I'll call a proper real estate deal, is 40,000 square meters in Lakowe that we bought from Mixta Africa, a subsidiary of ERM. Yeah. So that was my first venture. Yeah. So what do you want to
Tell
know
us about the thoughts behind that. What were the fears, the thinking, and the faith? You know, you had already had your fingers burnt in a future. So what inspired?
Okay, so this time I was sure that the land was real. I was sure about the title. I had been to their office, in Victoria Island. Everything kind of checked out. I also found one or two people, because of the fear I was coming with then, I wouldn't touch something I haven't found someone else that has bought already.
Okay.
Yes, so that was my own way to just be sure. So I found one or two companies that had bought from them. So I knew that the title wasn't an issue. The issue then was where to get the money. Yes, where to get the money. That time we needed to pay them maybe almost like 500 million.
Wow.
I didn't have anything like that.
Wow.
So, but I was trying to organize the structure in a way that we didn't need the money to be able to make that purchase.
Okay.
Yeah, so we only needed to come up with
an agreement
with a fraction. Yeah, it was a contract.
Okay.
Right, we needed to come up with a fraction of the money. Right, so it was the fraction of the money we needed to come up with that was my worry at the time. Also because I knew that for it to make sense, the project had to be big enough. Right.
Yeah.
And for it to be big enough, it's going to be expensive. I'm saying it's expensive. You have to work out the financing.
Definitely.
Yeah. So the business of that project is actually the financing of it, which is how to pre-sell some of it or pre-sell most of the land in a way that we could use a substantial chunk from the subscribers to complete the payment for the land. Yeah. And it needs a bit of experience. It's a bit complicated, but all in all, it was a good deal. Yeah.
Amazing. All right. So now I'm curious, right? In all of this process you went through, what was a significant lesson that you learned from that first deal?
Okay. Lesson. You're talking about real estate lessons. I'll say that you can't really be prepared enough for everything. You have to know that troubles will come. But there's some troubles that you want. There's some troubles that you don't want. You don't want trouble with title. You see, once title is right, the other troubles you can somehow surmount. Not because we're super smart or anything, because the market will grow on you when you're dealing in a developing area.
That's right.
And you enter a project at, let's just say, 10 million naira. Just for example, somehow over 1, 2, 3 years, 10 million naira become 30 million naira.
Absolutely.
Right? Not because you are super smart again, but just because it's how urbanization, and I'm talking about Lagos now. Yeah, so everything I'm saying, just know I'm talking about developing areas in Lagos. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to speak to other states, but I'm talking about Lagos. So the market will grow on you. And what happens then is whatever other troubles you might have had, whether in terms of cost overrun, maybe you're spending more than you budgeted, or it's taking longer somehow to the land or property is now priced higher. So it kind of evens out, I'm not saying you should go and gamble, but I mean, but I mean, the growth in so we had projections. Every project we had projections, and I can tell you that every project we ended up selling the properties higher than what we projected, right? So that already tells you something, right?
Yes.
And I can also tell you that every project we ended up spending more than we thought we would spend.
Wow.
So that's that balance.
Both ways, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I said it depends on whatever issues you're then referring to. So, but our biggest issue with our first project was COVID-19, because 3 months or so after we entered the market, all the COVID drama started. Okay, and nobody could have prepared for COVID.
No.
Nobody could have prepared for COVID. And it's funny that somehow we were able to fulfill our contract. Looking back, I don't even know how we did it then, but there's a theory that you need to like stretch yourself. You need to,
true.
And is in that
stretch that build capacity.
Yes, that you build capacity. So there are partnerships that we formed then that we wouldn't have formed. That we formed because we then didn't have a choice. The people I went to talk to that I wouldn't have gone to talk to at the time. It was just because if it's these guys that can help us, if it's these guys that help us, then we have to go and talk to them. So it's that difficulty too that kind of like birth some of the solutions that we now have.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You mentioned the impacts that COVID had on your business, right? So I want you to emphasize further and tell us more about what challenge really that posed for you and how you're able to navigate it through the partnerships you just talked about.
Okay. All right. So the biggest challenge was that at that time, we needed to sell a certain number of service plots.
Okay.
To be able to fulfill our own contractual obligation to the primary parties that we were purchasing the land from. Right. So we were somehow in the middle, and there was this lockdown. People could not even go out, talk less of doing inspections. Right. It was also such a distraction that everybody was talking about surviving or dying.
Yes. The world is coming to an end.
Yeah, and it's like the world's coming to an end. So nobody is really thinking about investing at the time. Nobody's thinking about investing at the time. So there's that distraction. Now we needed to solve our own problems anyways, or we would have to just give up. And we couldn't give up because we already entered some obligations too that we had to fulfill. So it's not even like we had a choice.
So it was a swim or sink situation.
Yes. And if you check many stories, people kind of make it in that situation. Not because they put themselves there deliberately, but they found themselves in that situation.
True that.
So that's the situation that we were in. So at the time, I found that, we can't sell this land one by one to get to the numbers we needed to get. We had to start making inquiries about how other people do it. Like, how do you push out so many volumes? How do you hear stories about some other real estate companies and how many units they are selling? I mean, you have to wonder how they do it. So we had to go with a plan.
Okay.
Right. To partner with realtor groups.
Okay.
Right. So we onboarded a lot of realtor groups at the time, which then gave some leverage. Right. So we're able to, let's say, sell in a month. Sometimes what it would ordinarily take other people maybe like 12 months.
Amazing.
To sell more. Right. So that's how we solved the bulk of that problem.
Okay.
Right. So I don't know if that's your question.
Yes. So tell me, what kept you going through when things got really, really tough?
So I would say necessity. Yes, it's not. We didn't have a choice. In the matter, we didn't have a choice. Luckily, we were selling something of value. Right?
Yes.
Right, and everybody that bought property from us in 2020, 2021, I'm sure they've doubled their money 2-3 times.
Amazing.
Over.
Amazing.
Right. So we couldn't go back. We couldn't come out of that transaction like that at the time without losing a lot of money, right? So we had to just continue and keep up and get to the end. And by the end, I mean we had to complete our purchase, right? And then we can now recover from the sales that are coming after.
Wow. So we know that investing is tough, especially in the real estate market.
Yeah.
So I want to know, what is that thing like that guides your decision? How do you decide where and when to invest?
Okay, so you do constant research, is you have to, real estate is not what you do in your sitting room, you have to be on the field. You have to visit sites. After a while, you get better at it. You see a place and you know that this place is going to be selling for double in the next year, right?
So there are always indicators.
Yeah, there are indicators. Most of the time, there are even ready answers for you.
Okay, how so?
Right? So you have a property that you want to purchase or you want to sell. The property down the street is already selling for double the price.
Okay.
And, it's a no-brainer.
Yes, true that.
Right, because people are already pricing at that. So most of our projects, we sell at slightly lower prices than what the market
that's smart.
is offering. And we are able to do that because we also know that at the time we're purchasing, that we're purchasing at a discount. So the business starts from when you buy. If you buy an overpriced land, you already have a problem. Even if you're developing it or building on it, it's going to be hard to make a margin, except you're able to sell it to very expensive.
Okay. So now tell me, what is the role that partnership, networking, and collaboration played in your success?
The way you use the word success, it's a journey. You've done it. It's a journey for us. We're in transit, right? But yes, are we much better than where we were 5 years ago? Yes,
definitely.
So to answer your question, partnership has played an important role. You have to, if you're in the real estate business, you have to know whether you are a construction company or whether you are a real estate development company or whether you're a real estate marketing company. You have to kind of know what you are. You have to admit it to yourself, and you have to partner rightly with people that are offering the other things that you're not offering, right? So if you're trying to sell a lot of properties that are developing and you're trying to sell it yourself, you're going to have a problem most of the time. You have to partner with people that do that full time all the time.
Okay.
Right. So partnership has really helped. You have to also, it's a capital intensive business, so you have to have financial partners,
yeah.
right? Whether formal or informal.
Okay.
Which means you have to build integrity. You have to build a lot of integrity. You have to have people that can trust you with large sums of money. And that's a very hard thing. That is not easy to achieve in 6 months or 1 year.
Absolutely.
Most of the people I do business with now are people that we did 200,000 naira, 500,000 naira business many, many years ago. You can lean off the back of that and they can trust you with larger sums.
Interesting.
Right? Because everybody needs some history to determine whether this person is lying or whether it's telling me the truth.
Absolutely.
Right. So there's that. So I think partnership integrity has played a big role in our survival. Let's put it like that.
Survival.
Because companies just wither off in first few years. But once you get to like year 5 years, 6 years, 7, then you can say that you're a serious company.
You're thriving already. Yeah. Nice. All right. So would you say you've had regrets at any point? Yes or no?
Yes. There's no. I don't think I advise anybody to ponder on regrets, but if there are things I could have done differently, definitely.
All right. So tell me about one deal that you passed on, and then looking back now, you regret.
Okay, so it might not even be a deal that we passed on. I'll tell you a short story. But when we entered the mixed deal, right, which is the Westbury Homes, 40,000 square meters in Lakowe, I was given a blank piece of paper. I had a meeting with one of the directors in the company, and they gave me a blank piece of paper and they said, write down the size of land that you want.
Wow.
And write down how you want to pay.
Wow.
the first thing I wrote down, I can't remember. I know I cut it into half. Then before I left that meeting, I cut it again into half because I was worried there about not disappointing them in
Meeting
payment.
up.
Right. Later, I saw that I made a mistake. I should have taken all of what I could take.
Oh, oops.
Right. I'm going to take in all of what I could take. So I limited myself. And I got to understand that over time, you have to know thyself. You have to know the type of person you are. So I'm worried about not disappointing people and all of that. I often take less than what I should take. So now I think I'll try to take more.
More.
Well, you have to do the opposite of what you are naturally inclined to do. You have to help yourself to do. Some people are already inclined to take everything. Those ones have to take a bit less.
Yes.
You understand?
True. Yes.
Yeah. So we could have signed up 100,000 square meters, but that 100,000 square meters, we ended up with 40,000 square meters. But that wasn't the initial contract. The initial contract was 20,000. You have reduced to 20,000. Then we had sold more than what we contracted for. So we now had to go back to repurchase another 20,000. And they sold that other 20,000 to us at double the price they sold the first 20,000. So I could have had everything on the first contract.
That's true.
So that's major.
Well, yeah. That's a big one. Thank you for sharing. All right, so wrapping up now, I want you to do a dial back. What factors do you feel contributed to where you are today? If you can just give me points 1, 2, 3.
Well, if you're going to do any business, it's going to require money. If you are going to do any business like real estate, it's going to require a lot of money. So you have to invest time in building financial relationships with people, right? You have to build financial relationships with people.
Very important.
You have to have some track record of dealing with them. Nobody likes to give. It's hard for somebody to trust you with 100 million, for example, if they have never done any business with you before.
Yes.
Right. So you have to do business on the smaller figures and you have to do very well. You have to try and let Tuesday be Tuesday, let Wednesday be Wednesday, and all of that. So that when you get to bigger sums, right, people can trust you with it, or the institutions can trust you with it. So I think that's very important, right? I think work ethic is also very important. You know, you have to put in, if we want to buy, when we want to engage our project, I want to buy a parcel of land, I ask myself, how many plots am I willing to look at before committing to one? So you want to look at as many plots as possible, right? So some people go, it's almost like buying a house or renting a house. If you rent the first place that you went to view, you didn't get the best house, most likely. But if you're ready to go and view 50 places, you know, by the time we get to number 25, they'll be taking you to places that you've seen already.
True.
And then you can have a more informed opinion about where is good, what price is good, and all of that. You know from all the places you viewed. So you have to have very good work ethic. You have to be ready to go out and do the dirty part of the work, which is viewing. Real estate is really about viewing.
Yes.
You know, the story will come to you naturally if you visited enough places.
Yes.
And we're doing mostly developing areas, so you can imagine traffic is better now, but when they were constructing like the expressway, traffic for us has
bad
every day.
Can imagine. All right. Thank you very much for sharing all of this.
Thank you.
There you have it. Very, very insightful, I must say. So for someone who is looking to delve into real estate, you want to start as a developer and investor, this episode is definitely going to be useful for you. If you did not remember anything, remember that real estate is a business of integrity. There are a lot of obligations that you must meet, and integrity is the major currency in real estate, right? So you must also have self-mastery, so you know what limits you can take. Also, you must have a very solid work ethic in order to keep up with the demands of the real estate industry. Thank you for joining us on this session of the Real Deal Naija podcast. Remember to share, like, and comment. You're already doing so great, but we cannot have too much of your engagement. I'll see you on another episode.